Good evening, everyone. Good evening, everyone. I think we are live. I hope we're live. Welcome to another night of Voices from the Heart. We thank you for joining us under very different circumstances. It's a conversation tonight between Graham and I around the theme for this week, which has been around our nation, mental health, particularly culminating in the RUOK Day event, which across workplaces and communities, people commemorated this day and spent some time particularly having conversations that matter. So it is a real privilege to be able to host this convo and also really very grateful for all of you tuning in tonight. Good evening, Graham. How are you?
I'm good, my friend. Yourself?
Excellent. Yeah,
Hey, look, I apologise for the lighting here. We've got terrible lighting, so that explains this romantic mood I've got going on.
Well, it's very much the smoky haze. It is very good. I think it's the very Dallas or Dynasty kind of effect coming through, which is fine on this balmy Thursday evening in New South Wales. First of all, I'd like to start off by acknowledging that I am broadcasting from the land of the Gadigal people of the Eora Nation. We pay respects to their elders, past and present, and we acknowledge their connection, their ongoing connection with land, sea, and sky. And also paying respects to anyone who is in the audience tonight who is of Aboriginal and Torres Strait Island descent. Thank you for joining us. Welcome to tonight. Now, this is a very different broadcast because you'll see it's quite remote. Graham is in a different location to me, and we've got our tech crew in different locations to each other. That is because after 18 months, if you haven't caught all the communications, we had our first confirmed case of someone who was COVID positive being inside one of our buildings. Now, that's been quite a long and I wouldn't say lucky run. We've done everything we can. Our teams have worked really hard to keep people connected, safe, and also COVID-free through this time, including a big focus for us on helping members of the community who come into our centres get access to vaccinations and medical care through this time. But this Delta strain certainly is a brand new kettle of fish, and sadly, it is ongoing reality for the next few weeks and months, particularly as we have different approaches to how we're going to, at a political level and a national level, approach community transmission over the next little while. So we've closed our buildings for a few days for deep cleaning, and we're going to spend some time planning on how we separate some of our teams out to, in as many ways as possible, be able to give us every opportunity of being able to continue to operate, even when people who are positive come into our centres. So that's going to be a really difficult juggle over the next little while, but we are committed to trying to do everything we can to ensure that we have as much continuity in being able to keep Wayside open as possible. Now, so for those of you who have asked before, the young person who came into our centres didn't have somewhere to stay. They were rough sleeping. They've been placed in a hotel. Unfortunately, they got shunted around to a few hotels, which was quite unnerving for them. But now they're settled in to another hotel, and our teams were speaking to them earlier today. They are asymptomatic now, but still COVID positive, and they still have a few days of quarantine and testing remaining. But they are in a safe place off the streets. But please keep in mind everyone who is doing it tough and relies, we talk about community as a buzzword, and tonight we're talking about the importance of community and connection. But for some, the connections and the family and the solidarity of the streets are what sustain them and keep them alive. And that is one of the most dangerous places right now with the Delta strain running a bit wild. But thank you for that longer than normal intro. Are You OK Day. Actually, we have a beautiful connection with the Are You OK Day at Wayside. One of our beloved team members has a relative that started Are You OK? And she's a gorgeous member of the family, but it also is a very painful day for her because that family member has now passed away. Even before COVID, mental health was an increasing issue across all levels of society. We're going to talk a bit about the big picture, and I will be throwing back and forth between Graham and I, and then there'll be a chance for you to ask some questions, which is lovely. And please send them through because, it's okay to say we're not okay through this time. I know of many people who are separated from family, who are separated from children, who have gotten to a place in life where this is the age to enjoy grandchildren, have been separated, and that may be only 2-3 kilometres or suburbs away. And so it's a really tough time. So what's the big picture, Graham? What's going on in our society that leads to such deep issues with mental health?
Mate, I'm inclined to the view that long before COVID ever hit us, loneliness was the social problem. It is the epidemic of Western society. And so we have, over a period of a couple of 100 years, privatized the self. We look at the people round about us in some ways almost as scenery. Look, the one thing that all people who walk into the front door at Wayside have in common is they think they're the only ones in the world that have ever gone through what it is they're going through. And they're not alone. That's a lot of people who think nobody has suffered like I have. Mm. And there's a kind of existential, I am the only one that's been through this. And when you're in that spot, the feeling is I need to gather to myself. I need to comfort. At Wayside, it's often, what can you give me? Mm. And what can you give me for free? And if you're not a Wayside visitor, if you're just an average punter, a very similar discussion is, how do I get the most for the least? How much did you pay for that? Oh, I got it for $10 less. It's this same sense of I need to comfort myself in some way. And that's that conversation, which is not evil or anything, but it is a sign that your life is imploding. It's white anting, it's disappearing from within. And, I often used to say, we were about to see a miracle at Wayside when the driving question switched from what can you give me to how can I help? Mm. And that awareness of there's something bigger than me and I can be part of something that's bigger than me. That's the sign that a life is going to turn around. Mm. So in some ways, this horrible COVID season has really frustrated and cut us off, from Wayside's point of view, from the very thing that could heal people. So tough days.
Absolutely. You often talk about a switch in pronouns where you see someone moving from that kind of way to moving in towards community. What happens there?
Well, it's worth kind of checking your pronouns. If it's all about me, my, then you can be certain that you're speaking out of separation. Your language is unredeemed. It's when you're flying, when you're in love, you always talk about we, us, our. You just do. And stop me if I'm boring you, by the way, but all of us go through this up and down where we have moments where we are speaking in the plural. We're part of something that's bigger than us. Like Robin and I talk about our plans and what we're going to do and what are the decisions before us. And then naturally enough, I slip into a process where I become smarter and smarter, and my pronouns become singular, and I begin to become so wise I can offer Robin advice on how she could be a better wife, or how she could do this, that, and the other, and I become the smartest person in the room. Well, there is no fate worse than being the smartest person in the room. That is the worst fate in the world. And, if you find that you are habitually the smartest person in the room, my God, you can do it. You can do that. You can live your life that way, but your grave will be in nothingness. That's a fast track to the abyss. So the trick, because this happens to us all, because I can't help myself, I become smarter than Robin. What needs to happen is that moment where you realize you're lost, you realize you're lonely, you realize that you're the expert, and suddenly you are caught up into the wonder of who the other is. And that can happen, that does happen as well. But it's about overcoming this existential sense of I'm the center of the universe, really.
Absolutely. The smartest person in the room also tends to be the loudest person in the room, and also tends to be the loneliest person in the room too.
Recurring messages like, nobody listens to me. How many times do you hear that in a week?
Yeah, absolutely. It's wonderful, Graham. Wonderful in how tragic it can all be. But we're not talking about the loneliest person and the smartest person and the loudest person as a line that separates you from me. It's a line that runs down the middle of us all, doesn't it?
All of us. When was the last time you just assumed that you're in the wise position? If only I was the Prime Minister, I'd know how to run this country. Oh, really? Isn't it funny how every Premier and every Prime Minister, they're all dickheads? If only somebody followed my advice. And the assumption is that I know better. Well, maybe you do, but there's a fair chance that you are stumbling along in this position of I'm the wisest person in the room, and it's misery. It's misery. The more you know, the less you have community. And when you're caught up into a place of you're actually in the presence of another, I promise you what you'll know is nothing. Nothing. When I get caught up in the presence of who Robin is again, I know nothing because she's no thing. And so, when you're in the presence of the other, you never preach, you never give lectures because you don't know anything. You're just in the presence of the other, and the awesomeness of that liberates you. It's so liberating to know nothing.
Well, today we had this beautiful RUOK Day meeting, but I've got to say, hands down, there were three highlights, but the two I'll talk about was a young Mia, who's the daughter of one of our beautiful staff members, jumps online and says, I'll do the acknowledgement to country. And, she is just full of life and bursting, and there was just not a dry eye in the Zoom. Then a few minutes later, a young lady, Eve, 7 or 8 years old, shows us her piece of artwork, and there was a moment where we were all captured, and and we all got self-conscious 2 minutes later doing our own pieces of art, evaluating them instead of just proudly kind of saying, look at what I did, and this is what it means, and this is how it symbolises who we are.
I'm so sorry I missed it. I had the whole day on the phone.
Yeah,
I had the whole day on the phone supporting different people. So I missed that session, but Robin was on it, and she told me, it was at Auntie Pauline, she said, you just got to listen to that lady's voice and you feel better.
Yeah, someone called it audio Valium today. Just helped.
I'd have loved to I'd love to have seen Mia do Welcome to Country.
Mm. Oh yeah, you'll get a chance to see it. So gorgeous, so beautiful. It kind of led us all into a deeper place. It was wonderful. So listen, man, are you okay is an important question, but there are some other questions. Are we okay? And are we connected? What do you want to expand on those a little bit?
Well, I think "Are you okay?" is a very good idea. I think it's great that lots of people have tried to check in today or send me emails, whatever. Are you doing okay? Great. I would like to ask that deeper question of "Are we okay?" I think the kind of thing that I've been talking about so far tonight is not a conscious thing. Nobody votes to be the smartest person in the room. Nobody has said, let's have the kind of society where we are all satellites from one another. But it's happened, it's unconscious, but my God, it's real. I used to tell a story about a primary school I visited where the teachers said, I forget now, 60, 70% of the class were medicated. And I think, how many babies have you got to medicate before you ask yourself, what is it about the system that's churning out little kids, all of whom think they're failing? So, there's a system happening. We're all part of it. And, even the ways we try and help people can often render them more lonely. You go into a big system and you're a patient or a client or whatever you are, and somebody thinks you're a problem and they give you various things, a program, pamphlet, something that identifies you as a problem. And so they're an expert, you're a problem. And people are well used to that. And a lot of our wayside folks know how to play a game around that. But it's not bad will on anybody's part. It's just that because I feel lonely as a say a worker at Wayside, I want to comfort myself that I'm a good worker. I want to be able to say, well, I gave 15 people a shower today and you only gave 5. I must be a better worker than you. How many problems did you solve? Well, I might have done 15 showers and met nobody. You might have done 3 and met 1. Well, from my point of view, we keep asking ourselves these questions about, because we're driven by outcomes. What did you produce? Can you show me the measure? Well, I'd encourage staff to say, yeah, look, my day was gloriously pointless. Today I just met somebody. That's it.
Yeah.
But it was transformative for me and for them. I was truly in the presence of that other.
I often call it, even though people walk in often on the worst day of their lives, convinced that they're utterly alone, I still feel it is important for everybody involved in that situation, the volunteer, the person walking in the door, the staff member. If we're really going to give our mission a fighting chance, then everybody needs to collapse. And that means collapse into community, drop the labels of helper and helpee and black and white and professional and client, and you forget all of that and just collapse into this connection where we say, hey, you are my brother and you are my sister. And I feel like that is what we're always aiming for at Wayside. That is why, the are we okay comes out of are we connected. I was always, today as I was thinking about this day, I remembered one of the first funerals I ever conducted for a tragic death. 21-year-old boy got into a car with his mates, bashed it through a paddock, spun out onto a little side road out the back of Marsden Park, flipped the car. 3 of them escaped. He was trapped and it caught fire and he died. And, we sat there at the funeral, and as I was conducting it, I kind of looked out over looked out over, in there, and apart from a few family members, none of the friends were there because they were all on the run from the cops. Still, it was, I looked and said there were social workers, welfare workers, youth workers, parole officers. The room was full, but there was not a single person there that he would call a friend. And when that kid asked who is my neighbor, the answer would be people who are struggling just like me and are dragging me down. And so who can be the friend? Who can be the companion? Who can be the one who walks alongside in this place? Yeah.
Who's with me? Who can be with me? There are many traumas.
Need to make an appointment to speak to.
Yeah. There are many traumas in life for which there are no words. And it's you can't expect people to be able to articulate these things which are beyond words. And I used to say at Wayside in the old days when I was somebody, I used to say, especially to volunteers, the best piece of equipment you'll ever have is a spare set of socks in your pocket. And when you feel tempted to be wise, take them out and shove them in your mouth, because you're probably just on the verge of where somebody believes you are with them and would like you to, will trust you and give them a chance to articulate whatever. So, I think I think the temptation to be wise is almost overwhelming, but I'm trying to prove my worth. I want to be a good worker. I want to be a good volunteer. And so I think I have to bring you through to some outcome. But the truth is, this person just needs someone who can be with them. That's it.
We're so trained to do it, though. I mean, that temptation to offer that advice is a little way to protect our own hearts and to push away. I remember it when I was at Melbourne University in the 90s studying electrical engineering. The least practical person I know was studying electrical engineering and computer science, and there was only two females in the faculty, so we and they paired up pretty early, so we had to meet girls somewhere else. So we, for some reason, started hanging out at the law faculty. And I remember one young woman said, "Come in here and I'll show you something." And she took me into the library, and I didn't know what was going to happen next, but she showed me a big textbook, and she showed me there were pages ripped out of it. And I said, why are pages ripped out of it? This is before the internet, right? I think there was a fandangle thing called the internet. This was 94. And she said, yeah, this is the reference page that we all need for our assignment. And some clever chap has come in early and ripped it out, so none of us can get the right references for the essay. We're trained to do this.
When James died, death's a horrible, it's a terrible thing, and people felt compelled to be able to say something wise to me. I don't blame them. It was all from good hearts. So people would say things like, well, thank God the suffering's finished, or there must have been a reason, or, all the silly things we're inclined to say to each other. And one day I was driving somewhere, and I had with me Michael Crow, who was a visitor that came to Wayside, who is now my brother. But we were just driving somewhere, and I just became aware that he was sitting next to me and weeping. And I thought, this man's really with me. He's really with me. No words, but we've become lifelong buddies.
Yeah.
And he was with me.
And that was completely an impractical response, right?
Oh, yeah. We so overdo purpose and meaning. I was saying to somebody today that, my cat is such a useless thing. It's completely unproductive. It has no economic value. unless we killed it and ate it, and then it might be worth, what, $10? It has no value. It's just, all it is it's here. And if you took it away, our home would be lesser somehow. But, I need to learn how to be more like the cat. I'm constantly trying to beat myself over the head with how productive was my day.
Yes.
Did I do this? And, can I measure myself against John or against somebody?
Mm.
And, I need to learn from this cat.
Mm.
It's just there,
Mm.
displaying the cattiness of God or something.
Mm.
God himself must be gloriously pointless to have created those bloody things.
Mm. I would agree. That there are so many species of flower. There only needs to be one with pollen, but you did this kind of amazing array. And that's so nice. I'll do another one.
Yeah.
It's so wonderful. All right, there's a really good question, and I'd really like to throw it to you, Graham, and because this is a really important one for most of us. That we have to grapple with at some level. So it's from Scotty. G'day, Scotty. How can you help someone who is in a position that they feel like they can't be helped, but you can see a path to their own freedom where they can flourish?
I would say, Scotty, beware of falling into the trap of wanting to fix a problem, especially wanting to fix a problem more than the person wants it fixed.
Mm.
So that's an invitation for you into a game where you keep making suggestions and they'll keep saying, I tried that, or this didn't work before, or something. And that'll go on and on and on till you get so bloody frustrated. You'll say, why do I bother? And they'll go away saying, see, I told you nobody could fix this problem.
It's a great game.
So everybody walks away more entrenched in their loneliness than when it all started. So be careful not to fall into that trap. Better to, if the person believes that there is no way forward, well, be with them to some extent and appreciate that they feel utterly stuck, and maybe say to them, so you feel like you're buried in quicksand here, do you?
Mm.
And they'll probably go, yeah, that's it. And that'll be the first time in a long time they've said, yeah, that's it. You got it. You're with me.
Yeah, look, it's very tempting to try and scramble for the right words or phrase that can help, but the real help is we're just trying to make our bad feeling go away inside of us. And it's far more helpful to say, I can't make you feel any different, but I can make you feel less alone in that space. One of the other keys, Scott, that I would say is where we feel like we could make a substantive difference in a person's life, but they don't want it. We really need to shove that pair of socks in our mouths and be able to give the gift of grief the way Crowe did for you. And to just, I often would say to, and I was saying this to a young man a couple of years ago whose life is now in the most amazing place I've ever seen, is to say, look, you're on a path to death and destruction, and I will give you the greatest funeral ever because I love you. But, I wish you could see the potential and the life that's in you. But I can't see it more than you see it, to make you want to live in any way. So the only gift I can give you is my sadness and grief in this moment.
I think that's beautiful. I often used to say too that at Wayside, I didn't want to run an intensive care unit where if you say, oh, I feel terrible, I think, oh my God, that's the end of the world. Lay in this bed and I'll put some kind of painkiller into your arm and eventually you'll feel better. I don't give a rat's ass. This is not about how you feel. How you feel is just a a mix master of jumbled feelings, and it'll change tomorrow and it'll change in the next 10 minutes. We're not about making you feel better. We're about calling you out of that realm, that world of feelings, into community where you'll feel good and you'll feel bad, but you'll be connected. And that's a hell of a difference. And, it's so if you feel bad, so what,
Well, that's, recently the phrase has been, we're not here to make sick people well or addicted people clean, but, to help dead people come back to life,
If somebody believes that you are with them, if they believe that there is something here bigger than you and me that they want to be a part of, this community, they will move under their own steam. And you don't have to have read a textbook or know anything about anything. You just watch that miracle happen. Now, it doesn't happen all that often, but when it happens, it's unmistakable.
Absolutely. The young fella I was telling you about, has taken advantage of none of my wisdom that I imparted to him. And gratefully so. And he's just done it all, with his the love of his life. It's been a miracle to watch and an amazing transformation to witness before our eyes. Yeah, beautiful. This has been a fantastic conversation. We look forward to hearing some questions from the audience too, Em. Look, I've got a few here, but are there any coming through on the line? Graham, you're on fire.
Am I?
When you're preaching from fire from the belly. And, right, what have we got? Questions here. So there's one about where is our society and our helping professions going wrong with treating mental health?
Do you want me to jump in? I think I'm not negative about what our people do for mental health. Thank God for our hospitals. Thank God for psychiatrists. Thank God for all of the helping professions. I'm cheering for them all. But we're living in a culture that thinks that your emotional life is the problem. And it's not. It's a deeper thing than that. It's I used to say to kids when I was doing lessons in school, which is just after Captain Phillip established Sydney, was when I was in schools. But I used to say to the kids, if I could 100% guarantee that I could make you feel great for the rest of your life, who'd be in? All the hands would go up. I'd say, well, okay, here's the plan. I'm going to put you on a table and we'll just whip off the top of your skull and we'll immerse your brain in a solution of heroin and you'll feel great for the rest of your life. Who's in? And you could see for some, the penny would drop that maybe I'd feel good for the rest of my life, but I wouldn't be living. Life lived well does have terrible valleys in it, as well as highs. It's engaged, it's moving, it's like it's breathing, it's a give and take. As I learned to engage with you as my neighbor, then I'll get frustrated with you because you're this, that, and the other, and we'll learn through this back and forth what's the right distance between you and me for a meeting to happen. If I'm too close to you, if I'm too close to you, I can't see you. If I'm too close to you, I want to run your life. A lot of people generally, they think intimacy is like a switch. It's on or off. They don't realize that intimacy is something that you learn, and you learn by going, oh, this is too close. If I'm so close that you need to be everything I need you to be, we're just way too close. I can't see you. And if we're so far away that I can't see you or hear you, then we're too far away. So how do you know what the distance is? You have to engage. You have to you have to kind of learn, is this too close? Is this too far away? It's a dynamic, whopping adventure. It's not a case of, I can make you feel better.
Wow, fantastic. Look, I think all real living is meeting, right? That's
right.
A famous quote, and I'm going to chop it up a little bit. But, I've never known what to do with my life until I began to really live by meeting people. It is, that the story I remembered was one of my first sermons here at Wayside, and didn't quite know what I was doing. So I said, let's all pray. And then all of a sudden someone just marched down the middle, said, hey, no need to be looking so glum. No need to pray. I'm here. It's me, Jesus. I'm back, baby.
He's probably right.
He was in a medical gown, and as he bowed down in front of me, we had to help tie up the back so we couldn't see that he was completely naked under the gown. But it was through meeting him that I all of a sudden, through that interaction, I came to life, and I saw our medical and our mental health system had so many holes and flaws in it. Wonderful people doing wonderful work. But the piece that was missing was that this person had a name and they had a story, and that they were a friend, and they were a companion too.
And it's always a surprise. You can't engineer it. You just have to be ready for it.
Yes.
It's like when this very dark Aboriginal man stood up in one of our church services once, and he said, "Can I sing you a song?" There was a guitar sitting on the corner. I said, "Sure, you can." So he went, got the guitar, detuned it for some reason. It sounded way worse after he tuned it. But anyway, he said, "I'd like to dedicate this song to Helen, who's a white woman I just rooted." Now, it was the funniest introduction to a song in church that has ever happened. And I rolled over laughing, and I thought, this is the funniest moment. And then he sang in his own tongue, "Let us break bread together on our knees."
Wow.
There's hardly a dry eye in the house. I didn't expect to meet this guy, but what happened was, after that hilarious introduction, is he just opened his heart up, and I thought, I'm in the presence of a brother, and this man's got something to teach me. And while 5 minutes ago I thought I was the teacher in this space, now I feel like I know nothing, and I need to learn from this man.
So good.
It's transformative.
Oh, that poor fella passed away at the ripe old age of 43. I couldn't believe it when we buried him. He looked about 75 years old.
Yeah.
In a 43-year-old's body. We'll just finish with a couple of questions here, Graham. There's some wonderful questions. Any suggestions on managing the anxiety that lockdown has created for so many of us? That's from Kim.
You may not find this helpful, but let me give you I think certainty, predictability, is a total illusion, and it's a useful illusion.
Come and work at Wayside. You'll be disabused of that notion pretty quick.
Yeah, I think normality is a very useful illusion, but it's a bloody illusion. Uncertainty is what's real. You have no sense of what's around the corner or what's around tomorrow. And I think in some ways it's better to be kind of grown up and think, actually, life is way more fluid than I would like it to be. And I think if you can get there, and it's uncomfortable, I think if you can get there, you're likely to live better today because it's so uncertain. Because you find that you're part of the movement in the universe where the rocks are eroding and trees are dying and new life's coming up in the garden, and you're part of that process. And you don't know what's coming tomorrow. You don't even know if you've got tomorrow. So yes, it's the uncertainty of it's kind of attacking us from every direction right now. But in some ways, I think there is the opportunity for us to grow up a little here. And, people used to say to me, "I'm so disillusioned with the church." And I'd say, from which illusions were you suffering? I think that something like that's appropriate at this moment. We're receiving a shake, and it's shaking some of our illusions, and that's not a bad thing. If it helps you say, well, I've only got today. I've got a roof over my head. I've got food in the fridge. I can say hello to the fellow at Woolworths, or whatever it is. I can send an email to somebody I love. I can pick up the telephone and talk to somebody I love, but make the most of that day, because it's certainty that's the illusion, not the uncertainty.
Yeah.
I'm probably not being very helpful.
That is, I mean, if I could tie a bow on it right there, I would. I think people who are at home watching, we have assiduously avoided talking about feeling better in this time, haven't we?
Well, feeling better is entirely overrated. And, so many people are...
That's our tagline for Are You OK?
Well, the bottle shops are doing great out of this. And, I think Harvey Norman's doing good and Amazon's doing good in the great pursuit of feeling better. But good on you. It's not a bad thing. Okay, buy a new bloody iPad. It's not a bad thing. But the project, if the project is how do I feel better, you are in a hall of mirrors, and I don't see a way where that project will end well.
Oh, look, I've there are those moments that are above and beyond time that occur right in the midst of the busyness and the craziness of life. And, if I add them up, that's probably a minute of my life. But the moments of being in purpose, of knowing what I'm meant to do and who I'm meant to do it with, they come with the highs and the lows of it, right? That's our hearts are designed for that, and and they're designed to be broken. That's what they're for, and they bleed. That reminds us that we still have a heart of flesh and not a heart of stone in all of this. So,
because life is an activity. It's a verb. This is something that you do, and when you engage, the deep valleys and the high mountains are all part of the journey. And really, if you try and eliminate the deep valleys, it's not life.
No,
it's not life.
And I think the problem with society is we're on that roller coaster. We know we're on that roller coaster, but the ego is unfortunately thrives on competition and comparison. And when all we're doing is looking at the little things in our hands and the TV, we're seeing people with these, which we know is an illusion, but we see their perfect lives with their perfect children and their perfect whatevers and their perfect cars, and we realize that we don't match up to that. I mean, that's what causes the suffering, I think, as opposed to...
best advice in the world is, I found that I was getting too involved in American politics, and because it's scary, and it's, to me, I feel like I'm watching a state collapse, and it seems important, but it's so easy to get involved in this madness that after a while, I have to get to a point where I think I'm not even American. Why am I carrying all this anxiety? Yes, it's crazy, but it's not setting me into a day where I can be as gloriously unproductive as my cat. I'm worried about the state of the world and what can I do, and which mad idealist do I have to do battle with next? And I don't want to do battle with any idealist. I fight on your own. I always mad back and forth on Facebook about who knows best. I want to be gloriously pointless and be alive. And I think in some ways I'd even say that the deepest and best qualities of what's good about my life came from the darkest valleys.
Yeah. Well, on that glorious, pointless point, Graham, I think it's time for us to thank everyone in the audience. Thank you for your questions. Sorry about two old fellas having a bit of a back and forward.
Sorry.
It's been a lot of fun, Graham. Thank you for your wisdom and your insight there, brother. And yeah, stay safe and sane.
See you on Sunday.
See you on Sunday. Look, I think the best line we can end with is that Leonard Cohen one from his song Anthem. There's a crack in everything, and that's how the light gets in. So proudly show your cracks. People around my side do all the time.
All right. Cleavage.
Yes. Thanks, everyone. Good night.
Thanks, everybody.